Hello, today I am going to show you how to start a new application in the Provider Management module for Vermont Medicaid. In order to begin, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to click on the menu button that's located on the top left-hand side of the screen. Under that, we're going to hover over Provider Enrollment and we're going to click on New Enrollment. The first thing you're going to see is our welcome page. This page is designed to give you more information about what you might need in order to complete your application. There's some basic information under the welcome section, and below that is an enrollment pre-checklist. This is not a required step. However, if you do want to learn more about what documentation you might need to complete your application by your enrollment type or provider type, getting more specific, you can fill out that information and hit Generate Pre-Checklist, and it will give you more specific information. When you're ready to begin the application, you can click on Start on the right-hand side. In order to launch a brand new application, we must first register that application. So every new application that you begin in the Provider Management module, you must register using an email address and a password. This password is what you're going to use in order to resume your application or to check the status of your application once submitted. You can also enter in a provider reference, which is not a requirement. However, if you are a credentialer and you're doing multiple applications, in order to make it easy to be able to see which application you're on every single page of that application, you can use that provider reference. I'll enter that in here today so that you can see how that presents itself on the page. After you've entered in all of the information, you can click register. You're going to receive this blue box letting you know that your registration is complete. It's going to give you your tracking number for this application. It's unique to this application. We call it your ATN or your application tracking number. And it's also going to send the information with your tracking number to the email address that you registered with. I'm going to click OK. And now I'm ready to complete the first page of the application. Just a couple notes here I want to make before I begin. Your tracking number is located at the top of every page of the application. And then if you did enter in a provider reference, that's also going to be under that tracking number here at the top. There is page level help available to you. If you want more information about the specific page of the application that you're working on, you can click on the question mark that's located on the top right-hand corner of the page. There's also field level help. So if you have a question regarding the specific field that you're completing, there's a gray question box, and if you hover over that box, it will give you more information about that specific field that you're completing. Lastly, if you want to preview or print each page as you go along, after you've completed a page, you have the option to print. And then at the end of the application, you can print the entire application if you wish to do so. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my enrollment type. And you'll notice that there are blue asterisks on certain fields. That means it is required. You will not be able to save the page and move on to the next page unless all of those fields are completed. So choosing from the drop-down list, I'm going to first select my enrollment type. If you want more information about the enrollment types, it gives more details about each type on our website, vtmedicaid.com, under enrollment resources. So I'm selecting facility today. And you're going to get a blue box here that lets you know that once you have selected your enrollment type and you've completed this first page and you've saved it, you're not going to be able to come back to this page and change that enrollment type. And the reason for that is if you've noticed, once I selected my enrollment type, all of these pages populated behind it. That's because the enrollment type and the provider type that you select drive the rest of the application. It's configured to only show you the information that you're going to need for those two specific pieces of information. That's why once you save that first page, you can't go back and change them because from there on out, the entire application is tailored to the enrollment type and provider type. So I'm going to click OK to proceed. Next, I'm going to select my provider type, again, choosing from the drop-down list. And I am a DME supplier today. So I'm going to click on DME supplier. And I got a little bit of a different type of warning on this one. It's letting me know that a DME supplier is a high risk provider type. So if you select a provider type that's moderate or high risk, it's going to let you know that there's some additional screening requirements that you're going to need to complete for that specific provider type. And then it's also going to let me know again. Once I save this first page and move on, I can't come back and change my provider type. If later on down the line you realize that you chose the wrong enrollment type or provider type, you would simply want to cancel or abandon your application and start over. I need to enter an effective date, so I'm going to just go ahead and enter in 5/1 of 2022 today. You can enter in an effective date request up to 1 year in the past or up to 90 days in the future. Below that, I'm going to enter in some information about this provider specifically. So I'm going to enter in the legal name of my facility. If I have a tax name or a DBA, I can enter in that information here, but it's not required. I do need to enter in an MPI, so I am going to enter that 10-digit MPI now. It does recognize that the MPI needs to be 10 digits and a valid NPI. So if you don't enter in a valid NPI here, it's not going to let you save and continue. It will kick it out on you. The only enrollment type that does not require an MPI would be an atypical enrollment type. So if you are completing an enrollment type atypical, that means you do not have an NPI and cannot get an NPI, and therefore it will not be presented to you. So if that is your enrollment type and you don't see this here, that's okay. You're not supposed to fill out an NPI if you are atypical. And if you chose different enrollment types here, if you're an individual or an OPRA, you're going to see this section a little bit different for you. You're going to need to enter in your name of provider, social security number. So just make sure that you're filling out all of the fields that have a blue asterisk that pertain to your enrollment type. For this facility, I can either enter in my tax ID or social security number in order to complete this enrollment. I'm going to go with the tax ID today. And then we're going to ask you a series of questions below that. We're going to ask if you're currently enrolled as a provider. If you select yes here, you're going to get a red warning box. And this red warning box is asking, since you're currently enrolled as a provider, are you actually trying to revalidate? You Providers in the Vermont Medicaid network are required to revalidate every 5 years. And there is a specific process for that in the provider management module. So if you are actually trying to revalidate, this would not be the process. So if I chose yes, that I am trying to revalidate, it's actually going to take me out of here back to the home page in order to complete the revalidation process. There are times when you are completing a new enrollment and you are already enrolled. For example, if I am a DME supplier and I need to add a service location, that's going to require a new enrollment. So in this case, I would be a currently enrolled provider and I'm not actually trying to revalidate. So I'm just going to hit no. And it's going to revert back because it's going to say, okay, we recognize that you're not trying to revalidate. You're probably just adding information like a service location. So we're going to leave that as no. We're going to ask you if you're previously enrolled as a provider. If you click yes, you're going to need to enter in your previous provider identifier, which is your previous 14-digit service location ID for when you were enrolled. And what that's going to do is once you fill out the rest of the information on this page and save it, it's going to pre-populate an application for you, pulling your old information that's in the system. So if you are trying to re-enroll, meaning that you were previously a provider, you are not active today, but you're trying to reactivate, you want to follow that process. We're going to ask you if you're Medicare enrolled. I'm going to click yes today. You'll notice that nothing populates here for me to complete, but if I choose yes, later on in the application, it's going to require that I enter in that Medicare information. And then lastly, it's going to ask me if I'm registered with CAQH. And if I choose yes here, it's going to ask me for that CAQH provider ID. The last section on this page is contact information. Now, there's going to be several places within the application that we require contact information to be completed. The contact information on this first page is who do we contact for this application specifically? So, if we have questions or need to return it for more information, where do we send that to? And you'll notice that once I completed the address and I tabbed through the zip code, it went through the USPS software to validate that address. And it's going to bring up a box with a suggestion for you to add for that address based upon what's in the USPS software. So you'll notice for me, it simply just capitalized everything that I had in there and it added the last four digits to the zip code. In order to accept those changes, I'm simply going to click on the line item here. But if for some reason you did not want to accept those changes, you could X out of this box and it will save everything that you have typed so far. Next, I need to select my phone type and enter in a phone number. You can enter in an extension or fax number if it applies. And then lastly, you'll notice here that an email address does not have an asterisk on it because it is not required. However, directly below that, we're going to ask you your preferred communication method. And you're going to choose from the drop-down list either saying you want to receive notifications about this application by email or by mail. We highly recommend that you choose email here because if we are sending you notifications about this application, there's typically timers on that information. For instance, if we had to return it to you for missing documentation, there's a 30-day timer on that. And if we have to send you that notification by mail, that means it has to generate the letter, it has to be printed, and it has to be mailed, and then it needs to get to you. By that time, you've already eaten some time that you have in that 30-day process, and then you need to get the documentation back to us and resubmit your application. If you select email, that notification is automatically generated and it's going to be in your email right away. So you'll know right away that something else is needed and you'll be able to action it. So I'm going to choose email for today. And then you'll notice once I did that, now I have an asterisk on the email address because I'm going to need to provide an email address in order to have that preferred communication method. I've completed everything that is necessary on this page. And before I save and continue, I just want to go back up to the top and reiterate. Double check your enrollment type and your provider type. Again, once I hit save and continue, those two pieces of information cannot be changed. So I would have to start over if I needed to change it. After you have verified those two pieces of information, entered in all of the necessary information for your enrollment type, you are now ready to hit save and continue and move on with the rest of the application.